premises are hard to see, but that is just fine with me.
While atheists often view themselves as champions of reason, reason is one of the most inescapable problems for atheism. Unfortunately, atheists usually don't realize it because they haven't followed their beliefs through to the obvious conclusion.
Alright, hitting it great from the get-go with that straw man and special knowledge. Straw man because although atheists might indeed have beliefs, you cannot properly call what atheism is a belief in any shape or sense of the word. It is without God. Therefore, it is without belief in God. So that is a lacking of belief. That is a non-belief, not a positive belief. Even if you want to somehow say, well, they have a belief that God isn't, you still can't really say that because that's not what the word means. But I guess if you want to say that, you didn't say that in this video, so it's still a straw man. And you're painting with this wide, insane brush to be like, well, you know, these beliefs that atheists have. What beliefs? What are you talking about? Because the only thing that atheist means is without God. So that doesn't tell you anything. And then the special knowledge, because you're saying, oh, see, they haven't looked into their own ideas, obviously, because if they had, then they wouldn't be atheists anymore. And I just know that they haven't looked into that. Like, I just know that they haven't done that research. That's that special knowledge that's required to make that statement. I know that this guy is full of himself and knows nothing about philosophy at all. I just know that somehow. Well, how do I know that? Magic. That's how. That's what a special knowledge claim is. It's just claiming to know something that somebody else knows or has done or doesn't know. And you don't know that because you can't read our minds. So, no to all of that opening.
Human beings tend to trust our cognitive faculties, which is simply a fancy term for the processes and abilities we use to form our beliefs. These processes and abilities include things like memory, moral judgment, reason, and so on. Of course, we understand that our cognitive faculties aren't perfect. We understand, for instance, that our memories are incomplete and sometimes wrong. Nevertheless, we assume that if we carefully think through a problem, we can get to the truth.
Wow, what an inane thing to do. Rely on your own reasoning and you might get to the truth, even though you know that your reasoning can be flawed. How about, I don't know, scientific process? Pretty dang good. Sometimes your reasoning can get you to the truth or something resembling the truth, and sometimes it can't. And if you were to only use it, well, you would get to wildly different ideas than somebody else. So it's a good idea to check in with somebody else and see if you're on the right path or not, especially for more important decisions that you might have to make. And then the more minds you have working on the particular problem, the better it is that you're going to be able to solve that problem. And as far as deriving the truth, whatever you mean by that, that is, I suppose, a reflection of whatever reality is, however close we can get to that. The worst method would be to just assume that your own reasoning is working. What if you believe that you're George Washington, the first president of the United States? Well, you used your own reasoning to come to that conclusion, but it's not true. If we're to use this Nimrod system, then everybody that's currently in a mental institute is correct about whatever it is they believe, even though that's not the case. And the only way to show them that it's not the case is to teach them that they are incorrect. They must accept that it is not true that they are George Washington. They must accept that their reasoning was wrong in this case. And they must abandon that and form a better map of their cognitive faculties to get to what the truth really is. That's a long, involved process, and it relies upon other people to do that. And those people in turn rely upon the scientific method, which is something that we use to get rid of the biases and subjectivity and lack of our own memory when it comes to trying to figure out how things are. When you write down something like "I need milk," and you carry that note with you to the store, and you continually hold on to that note, and as long as you're looking at that note, you are not going to forget that you need milk. And even if you do forget, it's right there on the paper. So if you go, what the bleep did I need? Oh, hey, I have this paper in my hand. Why do I have that paper in my hand? I think I'll look at it. Oh, it says milk. That must mean I wanted milk. But if you don't write it down, and you walk through the door, you might just go, why the bleep did I come to the store? And that happens. It happens all the time. Especially the older you get. Like, what was I talking about? I don't know. But this is stupid. And this is not... Like, on some things we do this, but on others we don't. So, this is a half-truth, is what this is. That's the long and short of what I was trying to get to with this long rant. So, moving on.
So, the general reliability of our cognitive faculties is something we take for granted. However, when we adopt a belief that undermines this general reliability, we're no longer justified in believing that our cognitive faculties are generally reliable. If, for example, I come to believe that a mad scientist has put a chip in my brain that controls my memories, I'm no longer justified in trusting my memories. If I become convinced that a psychiatrist has spent years hypnotizing me and manipulating my moral judgments, I'm no longer justified in trusting my moral judgments. Atheism is one of the beliefs that undermine the general reliability of our cognitive faculties. Here I mean atheism in the strong sense of naturalism, the view that the natural world is all that exists.
Actually, what you mean by hard atheism is a complete and utter straw man. Because even if someone says there's no God, that does not necessarily make them a naturalist or a materialist. Yeah, I know, it might be impossible for this Nimrod to understand that, but let me explain it to you. Saying that there is no God does not mean that there is no other realm that one could call supernatural. Just because there's no God, that doesn't mean there's no afterlife. Just because there's no God, that doesn't mean that angels don't exist, or that the devil doesn't exist. Maybe the only afterlife is hell and the devil, and there's no God. And I make the bold statement that there are no gods, but I still believe in some sort of supernatural realm. Or, I don't believe in a supernatural realm, but I do believe in metaphysical possibilities of other dimensions. In any case, those are things that are completely compatible with even the strongest of atheism, making your idea that naturalism is associated and connected to hard atheism a complete and utter straw man.
In a softer sense, an atheist could simply reject the God of traditional theism while believing in some lesser deity. But most people who call themselves atheists don't mean that they reject one particular God. They mean that they reject all gods and anything supernatural, leaving them with the natural world.
And yet another straw man and a special knowledge claim. Without theos is atheism. Without theos, without God. That's what it is. That's all it is. Now, it might be the case that had you done some actual work rather than just animating or getting somebody to animate some stuff for you, and shown a really good poll of a decent sample size of atheists, and say, look at this poll. See, most atheists also don't believe in the supernatural. And then said, therefore, the statement that many or most atheists do not believe in the supernatural follows from this poll if we extrapolate it out further and it remains consistent. Then you would have avoided the straw man, but it would be a moot point. Who cares? what's the point? That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a materialist, naturalist, and I know that you want that to be the case. I know that you need that to be the case, and I know that because I'm using special knowledge now. But what I'm trying to say is, even if you absolutely reject the supernatural completely and utterly, that doesn't make you a materialist or a naturalist, because both of those are philosophies and worldviews that may or may not contain ideas that you agree and or disagree with, and so you would not necessarily identify yourself as one of those. I do not identify as either a materialist or a naturalist, but I do identify as a skeptic and atheist because I am a skeptic. It's a result of being a skeptic, if you will. Now, I personally happen to not believe in the supernatural, but I'm not a materialist because I do not say the statement that would make me a materialist, in that materialist is essentially somebody that says all that exists is the material realm. A naturalist is very close to that. All that exists is the natural realm. And you might ask what the difference between those two is, and it's philosophy, and I'm not going to get into it. Some degrees of difference between the two. They might kind of be the same, really, but it just depends who you ask. But I'm neither one of those because I'm unwilling to make the statement that all there is all that I can personally observe and that has been thus observed by science. I do not know what else there can be or is. So I'm not willing to say that all there is the natural realm. I would be willing to say that all I can know about right now is the materialistic natural realm. But that statement does not make me a materialist or a naturalist. Oops. And of course, the whole special knowledge, where again, you know what the atheist is thinking and feeling and all that, because, it's just, well, they don't do this and they don't do that, and blah, 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 blah. You don't know that.
It's this strong sense of atheism, naturalism, which undermines the reliability of our cognitive faculties.
So this entire video is one giant red herring. You're not after atheism, you're after naturalism. Why not just go after naturalism then? Why all the fuss with, because you have to demean atheism, right? Because you have to try to make a positive case for God by showing that a negative case against God is wrong, which even if you could do that, which you didn't do that, would not mean that there is a God. So in other words, even if you were somehow to show that there can't be not a God, that wouldn't mean that there is a God. And if you don't understand that, well, I wouldn't be surprised, because I don't think this guy understands logic. But anyways, it's one giant red herring. So we're really discussing his idea of what naturalism is. And none of the things that he says follows. It's a non sequitur, because it doesn't matter what philosophy you have, either your mental faculties actually do work to some degree, or they don't, and what philosophy you have has no bearing on that, and so it doesn't matter. And going back to what he said earlier about believing that a scientist has messed with your memories or whatever, well, you believe in a deity that can do anything, which would also include changing the way your brain functions, which would then also undermine your ability to trust your own reason, if your argument held, which it doesn't. Otherwise, I would be using this argument against God, but it's incoherent and it doesn't work, so I'm not. I'm just reducto ad absurding what you're doing in this video, which is nonsense. The thing is, if there's a creature, an entity, it doesn't even have to be God, that can manipulate your brain without you knowing it, then what hope is there that your reason is able to do anything at all? In fact, last Thursdayism might as well be true, as well as truism might as well be true. And how would you know? You wouldn't be able to, ever. There'd be no way out. There'd be no way to say that anything that you actually observe is really actually true, because this entity can always change your mind and just make you believe whatever the entity wants you to believe. And then reality as you know it is nothing more than the whim of that entity. Well, I think we've hit hard solipsism. Oops.
To understand why, let's consider a few remarks by some of the great minds of the past.
Okay, appeal to authority. I don't care what these philosophers said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. Because your argument must stand or fail on its own merits. Now, if this was an essay, then you could include people and what they said as an example of things that could support your thesis statement. But it's not an essay, it's an argumentation in the style of a persuasionary dialogue, and because of that, none of this matters. You've got two different philosophers here. I don't care what they said, and thus, not just because I don't care, but because it's an appeal to authority. In this case, it's actually correct authority because they're philosophers. But it doesn't matter what they say, because it's just, oh, look, what they said. Who? Doesn't matter. Whatever. And I could find a philosopher that disagrees with yours. In fact, I could find 3. So then do I win because I have more than you? No. So why bother doing it? It's pointless. Cut it out. Moving on.
Since the claim that God doesn't exist or that the natural world is all that exists are paradigm examples of claims that go far beyond our daily experience, the only reasoning we should employ on such topics is attempting to show people that they don't really know what they're talking about.
What in the what? But that would what? What? Well, it's clear you don't know what you're talking about. But how would that work? What?
Hume did precisely this against theism in his dialogues concerning natural religion, but it's important to note that he would have taken a similar stance against naturalism. Human reason, according to Hume, just isn't equipped for such matters and should therefore remain silent on them.
So wait, use human reason to get to the truth, but then don't use reason anymore on these things. Well, then what are you going to use instead? What else is there besides human reason to figure out if things are true or not? Well, I mean the scientific method, but I don't think you're going to use that at this point. So what would you have left? This should be interesting. He's going to introduce us to an all-new way to discover if things are true or not without using human reason. Because he just said not using human reason. So this better be good.
In part 8 of the dialogues, Hume presents a simple theory of evolution to account for the appearance of design in nature. But he's almost joking when he offers his theory. It's mainly an attempt to show that all sorts of wild theories might explain order and complexity, so we shouldn't pretend to understand how we got here. A more serious argument for evolution would come along the following century. In 1859, English geologist and natural historian Charles Darwin published his most famous work on the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races, and the struggle for life. Darwin argued that within a population of organisms, some organisms will have advantages over others, and will therefore be better equipped to survive and reproduce. The offspring of the organisms that survive and reproduce will carry on the advantageous traits, and over a period of many millions of years, we can achieve the biological diversity.
Blah, 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 blah. More appeal, in this case, to the wrong authority, because Darwin was a scientist, not a philosopher. So, oops. So, who cares what he said? And who cares what he lamented later in life? And that he didn't understand what we understand now. Which is that, and I know what argument is coming here, because I know this argument very well, survivability also means being able to understand the world that you're in. If you don't see a lion that's coming your way, you're dead. So you have to be able to see the freaking lion. Now, more difficult concepts like ethics and morals and things of this nature are part of society, which is a different sort of evolution. But see, if I'm in competition with you, and you're in competition with me, then we have to be able to outsmart each other. And thus, our brain begins to develop more complex ways of doing that. And whoever does that the best survives. And as far as morals go, animals have morals, and have thoughts, and have reasoning. So, I don't understand why Darwin didn't quite grasp it, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. What matters is our ability to reason is a direct result of biological evolution. That's the fact of the matter. And whether we understand that or comprehend it or not doesn't matter. It works. We don't need to appeal to anything else for that to be comprehensible. If all there is nature, and that's it, our brains still function, for better or worse, the way that they function. Sometimes they work really well. Sometimes they don't work at all. And there's all sorts of variety in between. Sometimes you can't trust your own mind, and that's a scary place to be. But that doesn't mean that nobody can ever not always trust their mind, and nor does it mean that therefore we have to appeal to something else to be able to make sense of how our minds work. To do so is nothing more than an appeal to ignorance.
Our cognitive faculties may be more advanced in certain ways than the cognitive faculties of a monkey, but the mechanisms that produce them are the same in both cases. We wouldn't trust the convictions of a monkey's mind. Why trust our own? Because we're smarter? How much smarter? Enough for us to explain ultimate reality or the origin of the universe or the origin of life? How in the name of common sense can we trust our mutant berry-finding ability to do things that go vastly beyond what it was selected to do?
Meaningless question! How can we trust it? How can we trust it? I don't understand! And appeal to ignorance. So, that's it. That's all you got here.
Putting all this together, we can see why belief in naturalism undermines the cognitive faculties required to affirm naturalism. As Darwin eventually noticed, if our faculties were selected to find food and find a mate, we have no basis for trusting our convictions, and this obviously includes the conviction that the natural world is all that exists. So if we affirm naturalism, we have to reject naturalism. If naturalists choose to dogmatically cling to naturalism, even though it can't possibly be defended, then taking the advice of Hume, it would do well to limit their reasoning to tasks immediately related to everyday life. And following Descartes, if naturalists aren't happy being so confined by their weak cause, perhaps it's time to believe in a more powerful cause. For more on the argument from reason, click on this epic video.
Oh, that idiot on the bridge video. I did that a long time ago. I don't remember when, but it's somewhere in my videos. I'll give a lobster to whoever finds it. Go on. I will. I'll send you a lobster. Alright. If you find that video that I did about that video, you post it in the comments. And then I'll ask you what your address is, and I'll send you a lobster. Alright. What was I saying? Oh, right. So, this isn't a very good presentation of the argument from reason, which is, in essence, how do we trust our reason? That's the question posed. If evolution's true, which it is, then didn't we evolve to survive, not to find the truth? So how do we then find the truth, since we didn't evolve to find the truth, yet we do find the truth? So how does that work? And it's all based on this misunderstanding about evolution and the brain and how things work. Basically, you did evolve to see the truth, because it's true that the dang thing is chasing you, the tiger or the jaguar or the other person or whatever. You had to be able to understand that. Not you, but your ancestor way in the past, okay? So we did evolve to understand the truth. Now, the more complex things that we can comprehend are because our brains additionally evolved to be able to outcompete other humans. So they had to become smarter and be able to deal with abstract concepts. Now, the great thing about science is that it does things that our minds are just barely able to comprehend. Some of these things that we're learning about reality, quantum physics, for example, it's like it's so foreign to how we view things on a day-to-day basis that it's nearly incomprehensible to try to wrap your head around quantum physics. And even when you do, you don't really. It's mostly about the mathematics, and even then, it's also about the physics, and there's so much that goes into it. But it's so vastly different from the world that we normally associate with that the only way to comprehend it is not to appeal to a higher thing. Why you would include that, I have no idea. But to simply appeal to the methodology of science and say, well, here's what we've discovered and here's our understanding of it. And yes, this is really weird. And our endeavor to make sense of that is possible because we have created tools to assist us. So it's not just that we have a mind, but it's also that our mind is able to make tools, and that we're able to make the tools serve us, that makes it possible that we can understand the nature of reality. And at no point do we ever need to bring the supernatural into any of that to comprehend it. And I really would have to say, on a somewhat tangent of a note, that as apologetics go, the argument from, quote, reason, quote, is one that makes God seem incompetent. Because on the one hand, you're saying that evolution can't be true, sort of. And on the other hand, you're saying, well, you need a soul or you need God to explain things, which means that you're limiting God in some degree to having to do things in a totally different way than what reality shows. So that certainly isn't reasonable. And thus, your God would be not a true God, but a limited God. And that wouldn't be a God worth believing in anyways. So, even from a theological perspective, this argument fails. But I don't need that, because I didn't have any empirical evidence, repeatable tests, and I definitely didn't find a logically coherent argument. And so, unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, we must continue to be skeptical of the conclusions.